And I did learn that the value of commitment. So this man became the most successful personal injury attorney in New York, and he's famous. Now, the top guys, I would say 8 out of 10, if you ask them who you work for, it's always him. So everybody sort of learned from him how to be so meticulous that no matter what happens, you're going to be prepared. You're going to know the other side on everything. So it would drive me crazy. I'd say, we already went over this 5 times. Let's get it out. And it wouldn't happen. We go over it. And I learned the lesson of like, hey, listen, if we would have sent it out, this would have been different and that would have affected it this house.
Welcome to the LandLife Podcast with your host, PJ Reilly.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the LandLife Podcast. My name is PJ Reilly. Guys, if you're getting value from this podcast, don't forget, like, subscribe, leave 5 stars. If you got an extra second, maybe leave a nice review, 1 sentence, 2 sentences, something, nothing crazy. You don't have to get crazy. You know, Matthew was really cool. I liked hearing his story. Great podcast. Boom, done. Easy, right? Guys, at the end of this podcast, if what Matthew says resonates with you and you want to contact him and you want to kind of keep the conversation going, he's going to leave ways you can contact him at the very end. So make sure you stick around for that. One more thing, I get a lot of, we're LandLife. Where are we at? We got hats everywhere.
Gotta get hats.
So we buy and sell land. And so I'm getting a lot of messages, calls, texts about the land business, people asking, how do I get involved in it? You know, I want to be involved in the land business, but I don't have all the time in the world. You know, I run a business, I have a job, I have kids, all that kind of stuff. So shoot me a message and I'll let you know how you can get involved with the land business without having to be involved in the day-to-day of the business itself. So guys, today we got a different kind of guest. First of all, he's an RTA, so he's a great person, but you are a personal injury lawyer in New York. He's up on the 11th floor. Dude's just balling out in New York City right now. Matthew Segal, how are you?
I'm good. And feel free to call me Matt. Let's keep it a little informal. Maybe Matthew's like my legal attorney name, and between friends we'll go with Matt. So feel free.
When you get in trouble, do your parents call you Matthew? Yeah,
back in the day, that's what it was for sure.
I feel you there. So yeah, it kind of catches up to who you are, what got you started, why you decided to go the lawyer route, and what got you
for sure. First of all, thanks for having me on. Truly appreciate it. You nailed it. I am a personal injury attorney in New York City, so I represent injured people. Typically, they've been injured through the negligence of someone else. So it's not usually an intentional act. It's usually a negligent act. So things, the most common things are like car accidents, construction site accidents, slip or trip and fall accidents, things like that. And I'm 100% always representing the injured party. I don't do the defense side at all. I don't represent insurance companies or anything like that. I just personally couldn't really do that. I need to sort of be fighting for the underdog, so to speak.
There you go.
So I do that. We also do some civil rights cases. So things like police brutality and excessive force, 1983 civil rights claims, stuff like that. We do a little bit of that. And then as a side, I told you about this off air, sort of my pet project is a wrongful conviction case where we're trying to gain a man his freedom who's been in jail for now, I believe 32 years, which is, we could say that number, but I think it's pretty hard to comprehend. Even if it was 32 minutes, it would be a lot. So 32 years of his life for a murder that he pretty much clearly did not commit. And so we're trying to get him out and gain his freedom. So that's pretty much what we do. I'm located in Midtown Manhattan, I guess closer to the east side a little bit. But as you can imagine, I'm competing with some of the country's biggest firms and behemoths in terms of just, getting cases, being successful, stuff like that, which is where Arte has been sort of a competitive advantage in that regard, and finding ways to, differentiate myself and be successful in a market where, again, there's firms spending millions of dollars a month on marketing. So trying to find my niche, trying to, separate myself in unique ways. which we could talk about. And that's sort of where I am now. So the story of how I got there is, I think, what you were asking about, and it could be, we could be here for days talking about that, but I'll give you sort of the cliff notes.
Grade lacrosse practice.
Yeah, exactly. So how I got started, again, I was a finance major in college. And I sort of thought that's where I wanted to be, in the finance world, business world, just, trying to make a lot of money. That's basically all I cared about at that point. I was in a fraternity in college. I was the president of my fraternity. So that's sort of where my mind was, just having a good time. Having said that, I did pretty well in school also, but not like what I should have done. But having said that, my father was an attorney. He passed away a couple of years ago. My uncle's an attorney. Thanks. My cousin attorney. So we have a lot of attorneys in the family. And at that time, my dad said, listen, you could always go in the finance world, you could always go in the business world, but why don't you get your law degree? And you could make a lot of money doing that as well, but you could also help people. So start off with that and then see what you want to do. So that's what I did. Went to law school. I did not go to one of the top law schools, and that sort of feeds into something that we'll talk about in a little bit that I'm trying to do now, but did not go to one of those top law schools. So it wasn't like when I was graduating law school, which I did, I'm only mentioning this for reference to that. It's not a pat on the back, but I finished at the top of my law school, but it didn't really matter. I was not getting offers to start at $250,000 and stuff like that. So I had to kind of fight and scratch to get started. And so how I got started was really interesting. So my dad was also a personal injury attorney. My uncle is as well. Did not want to go into any of the family businesses because I didn't think that was, a good way to do it. I didn't even speak to my uncle about that, to be perfectly honest. It was just sort of like, let's start my own path. So I'm ready to start a job in like landlord tenant law, which was the only thing I can get a job at to start, which is just brutal because you're in a overcrowded courthouse, either trying to kick people out of their buildings or trying to get people somehow to stay in their apartments who haven't paid rent. And it's just not a fun place to be. I didn't really want to do that, but beggars can't be choosers, so to speak. The weekend that I'm supposed to start, I'm clothes shopping to get new clothes for work. And I get a call. Somehow this woman called me. Her father got my resume and was interested in me coming in on the weekend to interview for him. Didn't know him, looked him up. He happened to be one of the most famous personal injury attorneys in the country. But caveat, he's 86 years old and I'd be working from his house. But it was something in the field that I wanted to do. And, I guess I should preface it by, I could have probably found a job in this field, but the starting salaries were so out of whack with what I thought I was worth. And that's a lesson I learned in Arte. You really should just get your foot in the door. But needless to say, I took this interview. And when I get there, he has the property is worth tens of millions of dollars, maybe 10 million, something like that. It's a gigantic house on the water on the North Shore. Granted, it hadn't been redone for a long time, but it was an impressive piece of real estate. And he calls me in and he shows me all of the books he'd written. And this is one of them, actually. I'm using it to block the air noise so the the audio is better, but the trial handbook for New York lawyers. So he literally wrote
a huge book.
Yeah, and this is just one of many. So he's showing me these. He's literally wrote the textbooks. He's telling me he's 86 years old when he hired me. Keep that in mind. And his wife's 86 years old, so it's just them two. And he's saying, I'm going to set you up with your own firm in the Empire State Building. You're going to have everything. And I'm like, this is amazing. Sign me up. By the way, the starting salary was way more than I was going to make. So I'm like, sign me up. Let's do it. Right. He was partners with F. Lee Bailey, who, if you don't know his name, was one of OJ's lawyers on the Dream Team, very famous lawyer. So, he's dropping names and I'm like, all right, let's do this. He told me about some of the cases he's had. He represented a lot of the victims of there was a Pan Am airline bombing over Scotland, I believe it was. That was a terrorist bombing. He represented a lot of those people. So he had a lot of famous cases, made a lot of money. And I'm like, let's do this. And so I started working for him. I would reverse commute from the city to Long Island. Most people are going the other way.
Yeah.
I'd get picked up by his maid in his house from the train station, She'd bring me home. She'd make me breakfast. She'd make me lunch. It was a surreal, sort of weird job. And like most elderly Jewish men from Long Island, during the summer, during the winter, his family, him and his wife, would go to Florida. So I'd be by myself for half the year in his, in his estate, doing the work. Now, what was the work? So that's now let's move the story along a little bit. I'm sort of telling the long story. You can feel free to move me along if you want.
This is super interesting. This is like an HBO special.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not the common way that people start. People start, at a law firm, they get, overwhelmed with work, they hate it, or they try to move firms, they try to work their way up, which eventually happened to me, but it was unique because here's what happened. My two clients at that firm were my boss and my boss. So we did not work. He was shutting down his firm. I didn't know this. We did not work on any injury cases, aside from his own malpractice case where he was the victim of some medical malpractice. And then he was breaking up with his partner. So my job was to represent him in that breakup. So every day we worked on these two cases, and we worked on them like they were the only cases in the world, which to us they were. But it was really intense because like a letter that would take me an hour to send out, there's no hyperbole, it would take us a week to send out. So a paragraph, he'd go over every line, every sentence, every word, and just revise it over and over again. And it would drive me nuts, but I sort of learned from him the value of really knowing what you're saying and meaning what you're saying. And so we would look over his medical records, and every page would be dissected. Every letter, every word, every symbol the doctor made, we needed to know exactly what it meant. So I did not learn from him how to handle personal injury cases. I did not learn most of the things that I learn now, but I did learn the value of preparation. And I did learn that the value of commitment. So this man became the most successful personal injury attorney in New York, and he's famous. Now, the top guys, I would say 8 out of 10, if you ask them who you work for, it's always him. So everybody sort of learned from him how to be so meticulous that no matter what happens, you're going to be prepared. You're going to know the other side on everything. So it would drive me crazy. I'd say, we already went over this 5 times. Let's get it out. And it wouldn't happen. We go over it. And I learned the lesson of like, hey, listen, if we would have sent it out, this would have been different, and that would have affected it this way. So flash forward a couple of years, we do the breakup of his firm. His case gets settled for a lot of money. And now I'm sort of thinking, all right, Matt, like, you got to move this along because I'm not in court. I'm seeing people who graduated after me sort of surpass me. I did make a lot of connections because it's funny. There's a very, the best organization we have in New York is called the New York State Trial Lawyers Association. And so we do lobbying, and we help each other through continuing legal education, stuff like that. And he was the first president ever of that organization. Now, I don't even know what they're up to, but he was number 1. So when they have the ceremony every year, which was like his Super Bowl, he'd be in the top left corner of multiple rows because he was the first president. So I mentioned that only to say that what I also didn't realize is that I was making high-level connections. This former past president, this former past president. So I'm meeting as we go. People are coming to his house because he was highly respected just to talk about things. So I'm meeting a lot of these past presidents and highly successful attorneys, which later on really proved to be fruitful for me. So those are the 2 things I took away from this: the connections and just learning how to network with high-level people, and the value of over-preparing. And although I didn't get the legal experience that I wanted and I thought I was going to get, I didn't get the, sick office in the Empire State Building. We moved out of that office within the first 3 months, and I was literally doing the moving. We didn't hire a moving person. I had things on my back, just breaking my back doing all this moving. I did a lot of things that I didn't think I was going to be doing. So needless to say, I then told them I had to leave. I got hired by a firm who was also famous for overpaying. That's how they get people in the door. But the boss is a stereotypical psychopath who just berates his employees, berates paralegals for no reason. He didn't do that to me, but I knew sort of my time was coming. So after about 6 months, I'm in court. I'm running around because we're understaffed, doing like 5 different things. an attorney said to me, hey, are you working for so-and-so guy? I can tell by the way you're sweating. He goes, if you ever want to work for a real firm, come to me. So after 6 months, I then moved to this firm. This firm is where I really learned how to be a lawyer. You need, one thing that I really plan on talking about here towards the end, but as well as I do, you need coaches. You need to be part of an organization like Arate where people are trying to help each other and level up. You need to learn from someone who's done it before so that you don't need to learn the hard way, and you could compress 10 years into 2 or whatever it is. So that's where I really learned how to be a lawyer. I learned what to do, what not to do. These guys were really great in teaching me. But the one thing I wasn't getting was trial experience. I knew I wanted to be a trial lawyer. Most people in my field, they want to hide behind desks, they want to push papers, but it takes balls, it takes some guts to go in front of a jury and argue a case. Yeah. And the spotlight's on you, a judge is on you, the jury is watching you, there's people in the audience. It's nerve-wracking. But I knew that's what I wanted to do because that's what made me want to do this. So why? My friends and I were all love sports, and we just argue sports nonstop. And so for whatever reason, all my friends are Met fans, and I'm a diehard Yankee fan. And so every, pregame that we would have in law school, we'd just be fighting with each other. And I try to make my point about, the Yankees, why they're better than the Mets, which everyone knows they are. And then the next week we'd have the same argument. I'm like, no, that's not what happened. Blah, 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 blah. So I just love arguing, right? I love trying to, show my point of view, but also helping someone along the way. So, the sports argument is bullshit, right? But when I'm trying to fight for someone who's been wronged and they're injured, now I could kind of put my talents to good use. So the one thing that this firm, although they taught me everything, what they weren't doing was let me do trials. So they were a small firm, and the head partner, he'd be doing all the trials. And I'd say, I want to do it. I want to do them. And I just couldn't crack into that. So one day, again, in court, a good friend of mine said, hey, listen, we're looking for a trial lawyer. Come over to us and do your trials. So the guy who ran that firm was a little bit, I don't know, I want to call him shady, and people said, good luck with that. But I went over, again, he paid well, but the main thing is I was able to do trials. So I started to do trials. I started to get comfortable, right? All right, now here's where the story gets good. And that was a big setup. So one day, about maybe 2 or 3 years after I've started working at this firm, we come into work, and most firms get the New York Law Journal delivered. Someone says to me, I come back from court, did you see the cover of the New York Law Journal? I said, no. Pulls it open. Our boss, his license was suspended. It's on the cover of the New York Law Journal. So everyone's freaking out. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Nobody knows. And like I said, this guy was, known to be not, it's just a little bit shady. In terms of, we didn't think anything underhand or improper was going on, but he was, you never really knew what he was saying. Like, it was a little bit of, not a bait and switch, but he would say one thing and you'd never see the proof was in the pudding. So that happened. And of course he's saying, oh, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So there was about 5 other associate attorneys. And I said, listen, we need to have a meeting to find out what's going on. And he said, sure, come on. And I said, no. Not with you, with your attorney, so we can know what's actually happening. So his attorney comes in, and we have a meeting just with the associate lawyers in the conference room. And his attorney says, listen, his license has been suspended. We're going to fight it. But for now, he cannot practice law. So and he was a high volume practice. Another firm like the psychopath who yelled at everyone, where I really learned what not to do. Right. So there's value in in like the other firm teaching me how to practice. There's a lot of value in that, but there's also a lot of value in seeing what not to do. So one thing this guy said was, listen, all of these cases, his attorney said, all these cases need to find a new home because he can't practice law and he's 100% the owner of this firm. By the way, a lot of other firms started this way. So now in my head, backtrack to what I was mentioning to you before, I'm in Arate now for about a year when it first started. I have this entrepreneurial bug. I was one of the kids that everyone on these podcasts says I was flipping airheads in middle school. My mom would buy them from Costco, and I try to flip them, make a buck. Yep. So I have this entrepreneurial spirit. I didn't go to one of the top law schools, so I'm not making that money. I'm pissed I'm not making that money because I think I'm just as talented as all of them. I'm wondering, what the hell can I do to make that money? And I'm reaching out to my friends already before this happened, who are lawyers, who have firms or or work for firms that don't have personal injury aspects, personal injury practices, that I said, hey, maybe I can be that guy at your firm. Problem is, I don't have cases to start with. So in my business, you can sign up a case today. You don't get paid for that for 3 years. So what am I going to do for the next 3 years while I'm signing up cases? Because it has to go through litigation and stuff like that. Granted, there are cases where you can settle quickly, but that's not how I practice. I always want to get maximum value and maximum justice for my clients. So I'm looking around and I'm thinking, I'm the only trial attorney. So I'm the only one who can really take a case and prosecute it till the end. On top of that, I think I'm the only one with the entrepreneurial balls to do anything. So a couple of days go by, and he's not telling his clients that his license was suspended, that they need to find new lawyers. A week go by. Now I'm getting pissed because this is not proper. Because I'd want to know immediately if I was a client like this. So I then hire my own ethics counsel, because the last thing I want to do is do anything improper. And the ethics counsel says, listen, these clients need to know that they need to find new attorneys. Don't say to them, come with me, because we don't want to cross that barrier of your prior boss saying that you stole cases, which wouldn't be the case anyway. So one by one, I'd say, hey, listen, you need to find a new attorney because this happened. And one by one, they'd say, it's funny because the customer service that I provided, or I tried to provide, in the long run, because it's a long game, as we've learned, came back to help me. Because one by one, they said, Matt, you're the only person who ever calls me back. You're the only person who ever tells me what's going on in my case. We want to stick with you. So then I'm thinking, shit, this is what I've been waiting for. This is the chance. This is my opportunity. I have to be ready to strike when the opportunity presents itself, right? Because, luck is, when preparation meets opportunity. So this is it. And I'm listening to the podcast that we listen to, all the personal development that says that you got to be ready to strike. And I'm like, fuck, this is it. I got to strike here. So all those clients that told me that they wanted to come with me, I kind of looked and saw which are the most valuable cases that I could start with. And I one by one, I took subways, I took buses into the heart of Brooklyn, into the heart of the Bronx, into the heart of Queens. I'm wearing a suit. This is not areas where you see someone looking like me walking around and stuff, but I didn't care. I was going to do whatever I had to do. One by one, we signed them up. And then I had to sort of say, well, where's my office going to be? What am I going to do for equipment? What the hell am I going to do? And I started going through my resources, and I started to say, all right, well, here's someone I can get creative with. I don't have the funds right now to pay New York City rents, but we could strike some sort of a deal where it could be beneficial for all of us. And that's what I did. And that was at the end of 2018. We started with those cases. We just settled one for $5 million, where the offer at the old firm was for $13,500. It probably would have gotten settled 5-6 figures, but we worked on it for 5 years straight every week, and we just settled it for $5 million. So that's the most recent one, but we've had a lot of success in that 5 years. We had a great office now, as you can see, great views. We feel professional coming to work. I have an associate working for me now. So that's basically the origin of how Segal Law Firm got started. And, I tell that story in a long form like that, just if anyone stuck with me on that, because I think it's really important for a couple of reasons. One, if you're first starting out, it's okay to not get that $250,000 a year job. There's so much value in the intangible things you learn, how to be over prepared, how to network, being hungry, scratching and clawing for cases and trying to find out, how do I get the cases that the big firms are missing out on? How do I provide the best customer service? That's basically how I differentiate myself. We can get into that also. I don't want to just keep talking, but that's basically how I said. I had that Jerry Maguire moment where, if you look at my website, my whole thing is that in these firms that I've worked at before, you're just a file. You're just a file. They're going to sign you up, but after that, you're never going to speak to an attorney again until he wants to contact you because something's needed, right? So how do you provide that customer service? So all my clients have my cell phone. We're texting. I would say, honestly, 100% of my clients, when the case is done, they're going to say, I got the best value I could have from my case, and that Matt kept me informed the whole time. So that's basically what I learned. So if you're listening out there and you're not at one of these top law schools or top business schools and you're not getting these offers, I'm going to tell you that's a freaking blessing, because what's going to happen is it's going to take you the long road, but you're going to find out the ways to differentiate yourself, where all these other people are just punching the clock every day, so to speak, just going through the motions. Yeah, they're going to keep getting raises. They're going to make a lot of money, but on the back end, you're going to find out ways to make a lot more money by being creative and starting your own business. So that's basically the story. Those are the main lessons. And, we could go from there. I don't want to.
Yeah. No, that was great, man. That's like a book in itself. It's either has to be a TV show or a book, something like that. You got to get this in some sort of.
There were so many random things. Like his maid was like cooking me lamb chops at lunch, which I love. And it's like, I'm not just going to like this local salad place. I'm being served lamb chops at lunch on an estate in Long Island, looking over the city. I'm like, it's like, what is happening here?
Yeah,
it was so surreal. It was crazy what was going on. But again, it really is an interesting story. But hopefully, it has a pretty big ending, because I think we're just at the beginning, to be honest.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So what I thought was really interesting too, with the 86-year-old person, your 86-year-old boss, when he taught you preparation with those letters, and you're always correcting things, always making changes, right? You took that with you until now, right? So now you can jump into a situation. You were saying you were the only trial attorney, right?
Yeah.
But it takes balls to get up there and do that, right? A lot of guys have balls, and they're willing to talk in front of people. However, not a lot of those guys come prepared as well.
100%.
Right.
100%.
So during the course of that time, you were building preparation to match your tenacity.
Yeah. All of these little things.
On your own.
Yeah. All of these little things that you don't realize at the time. You're pissed that, that you're commuting to work or you're not making the salary you want, but all these little things are worth more than another $5,000 in salary or stuff like that. And so, yeah, when I go to court, when I go to trial, not court, because you go to court for a couple different things, but actually when I go to court on arguing motions or mainly trials, the feedback I get every time from the judge is, I've never seen it. And I don't mean to, break down in hyperbole, but they really say this. I haven't seen a lawyer like you, your age, come this prepared, because I sort of say, listen, what happens if this happens? And what happens if this happens? And so every contingency is planned upon. And my business model also feeds that, because I don't sign up every case that I can get and just try to settle it on the cheap. We sign up cases that we believe in, that we want to help the client in, but because we have that lower amount of cases, I can over prepare. I have the time to over prepare and get to know the clients. And what the crazy thing is, you get that money on the back end, because when I over prepare and I know my client's story more than just having a phone call with them right before trial, I then can passionately can convey that to the jury, and that leads them to give us more money because they know what happened to my client. So all of these little things, like, and I really can't stress to you the level of over preparedness. And he was famous for that. Everyone that's ever worked for him knows that, because if he doesn't understand one little thing, we may spend a month trying to figure that out. And you may think, and oftentimes it probably is overkill, but for the few times that it's not overkill, it's going to pay off in spades. So you're totally right. That over preparedness, when that coupled with the balls to do the trials, you're going to crush it, because that's why I win my trials. I'm in there against people who are just reading the files that week for the most part. And I know, when they're asking me certain questions, hey, what happened here? I'm like, oh, you're dead, because I'm just going to crush you, because you don't really know the facts and the important issues as well as I do.
Yeah. So you're basically coming in prepared for battle, right?
Yeah.
So you're going 100%. in facing this obstacle, and you are preparing for a possible attack from this side, a possible attack from this side. So you have all the angles kind of taken care of. Now,
and you can never prepare for them all either. Something new is always going to happen that you didn't prepare for. But that level of preparedness, knowing all the facts, gives you an increased ability to think on your feet.
Absolutely.
Because you're already into it. You already know what the client's thinking. You already know what their arguments are. If you don't know all that stuff and something happens that you're not prepared for, there's going to be that moment of
you're not able to pivot.
And you're not able to pivot whatsoever. So that's another benefit to just being over prepared.
Okay, I think we already answered the question, but what sets you apart?
Yeah. So again, thank you for that question, because again, I once put up a post on social media, because everyone's seen Jerry Maguire, I think, around our age.
I love that movie. That is one of my favorite movies of all time.
part of the reason why I wanted to be a lawyer is that I wanted to be a sports agent or an entertainment lawyer, which I think everyone did. And then throughout law school, I'm sending my applications. Everyone's like, it's not what you think. It's the same as, contract law. Yeah, it's cool. Like it's, athletes are your clients, but it's not what Jerry Maguire is. Granted, I'm sure I probably would have loved it anyway. But that moment in the beginning where he's writing that mission statement that he ultimately gets fired for, where it's less clients, more client interaction, that's me. Because again, I saw at the two firms specifically, just filling up the file shelves with cases. And a client, I'd finally speak to them and said, why didn't you call me back? And I said, I didn't even get the message. So it was just zero effort into client services. And just, when you're in an injury case, when you're the plaintiff, a lot of times you can't work, you can't pay your bills, you're injured, you can't do the things you love to do. And that's insane. That's you're in the worst part of your life. So you then find someone recommends you a lawyer, or you Google it, and by the unluck of the draw, you end up at what's called a mill, where you're promised these things and your case sits on a shelf and you're not getting any feedback. And I knew, listen, if I could separate myself, if I could treat my clients like they're my mom, there's going to be value to that. Maybe not right away, but once they start sharing their stories about how I treated them, that's how I'm going to really grow my practice. And that's what happened. So that's how we separate ourselves. Again, I will call, text my clients. I was texting someone at 10 p.m. last night. I don't really care. I want to make sure that they know that we're there for them. Obviously, if I'm with my family, I want to really create that separation if I can, if it's not urgent or things like that. But we go over the top in sort of trying to make sure our clients know that they don't have to reach out to us. We're going to reach out to them. We're going to update them. We're going to provide them with guidance. We're going to, try to get them all of the damages that they're entitled to, not just the pain and suffering, but if they lost work, we're going to get them the lost wages. If they're out of pocket for medical bills, we're going to make the effort to do that. A lot of times it's extra work for us. A lot of times it's outside the scope of our retainer agreement, which outlines what we're going to do. But that's what you have to do. And, looking at your Arte hat, one of the first things we did was establish our core values. That you don't see any law firm doing that. That's up on our website. We stand by our core values. Yeah. The first time I hired an intern, I printed out the core values and I said, here, study these. These are what we care about. So, we're trying to, and this is something Andy talks about, but we're not just trying to win. We're trying to dominate. We're trying to do everything ethically. We're trying to make sure judges, opposing law firms are going to say, we like dealing with Matt. We know when Segal Law Firm is on the case, this is going to be a legit case. He's going to be ready to fight. And so we better take this seriously, maybe try to resolve it now, as opposed to letting him, really get his hands on it. And so that's paid off. So that's really what separates us. You're seeing a lot of firms now try to talk about that, but to me, the proof is in the pudding. And so when my clients really share their stories, and we have some really like the client we just got $5 million for, he's going to share his story. I can only imagine what he's going to say, but I think that's going to help us a lot. So that's really the separator.
So one thing I have a question. When you're not in law, like you're the victim here, right?
Yeah.
This is such a nerve-wracking experience. Like you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So you fall, you get hurt in an accident. You work for this giant company, this huge company that's owned by a bigger company, that's owned by a bigger company, right? Yep. You're like, all right, I can file this claim, but when I get into court, it's so intimidating. How are you able to, build relationships with these clients of yours?
Yeah.
When I'm sure they're terrified of dealing with their giant opponent, and they're probably going to lose their job. I would imagine. So how are you helping these guys? How are you talking to these guys?
Yeah. So it's a great question. And it's funny because I'm dealing with an issue with regard to the medical insurance payments on a client who was employed by a big company, and they made the payments and they're entitled to it back. But so we're trying to work that out now. But it's a good question because, the bottom line is what I tell them is like, this is what I do. This is we're specialized in this. So, there's a famous saying, the person that represents themselves has a fool for a client, because you're not a lawyer. You don't, it's very easy to say, hey, I'm hurt. It's his fault. I should be able to get all this money back, right? But you're not trained and you don't really know the letters to write, the deadlines that you have to comply by, anything like that. So the first thing I say is, listen, all you have to worry about is your medical treatment and feeling better. I'm not going to get in the way of that. If you want to ask me for my opinion or how it could affect your case, by all means, ask me and I will give you my feedback on that. But I will never tell you to get a surgery or, if it's just to benefit the case. I want you to just focus on working with your doctors on getting yourself healthy. The rest of it, that's what I'm here for. So dealing with your employer, dealing with getting you paid, lost earnings, dealing with, filing a claim. Because you're right. Most of the times we're dealing with the giant insurance companies who don't give a shit about you at all, even your own insurance company. So when you get hit by a car that doesn't have insurance or has very minimal insurance, and you want to then turn to your own insurance company, which is part of the policy that you pay for, they are still going to try to shut you down, which is kind of crazy. It's like, you're my insurance company, I pay you for this, and you're still trying to tell me that my claim is bullshit or whatever it is. So that's really what I do from the get-go. And I say, listen, I will always be here to answer your questions. In fact, I'm going to call you proactively to see if you have any questions. But don't worry about any of that stuff. We're going to keep you informed. We're going to make sure you know what's going on. Just worry about your medical treatment. Let me do the rest. And if you have a family member that you authorize me to speak to, your husband, your mother, your father, by all means, I'll explain it to them too. So I think just by that conversation at front, that takes a lot of the weight off their shoulders. They don't think that they need to do anything else other than go to the doctor, work on getting themselves feeling better, go to therapy, and then they have that trust in me from the beginning.
Okay, gotcha. That's perfect. Yeah, it's got to be incredibly intimidating when you have no idea what you're talking about, and you can't even really convey the information to your attorney. You have to just trust that you know what to do when the situation arises. Right?
And there's a lot of unknowns. A lot of times there's a lot of variables, and the question I inevitably get from every client is, how much is this worth? What am I gonna, what's this case gonna resolve for? Problem with that is there's a million variables. There's so many different things that can go awry. So, we don't really answer that question. We could say, listen, here's a general range of what we settle these types of cases for. But having said that, let's disregard that. All our job is to max out the value of your case. Yeah. And so how do we do that? And we get to work doing that.
How often do you turn away, I guess, maybe claims that maybe weren't your level of legitimacy?
Right. So that's the great question. And my, New Year's resolution this year was to say no more, because I really want to focus on, I don't want to say higher level cases, but cases where the client is really, really suffering, albeit financially or medically. But then there's the flip side to that, which is what I'm telling you, how I get most of my cases, which is by word of mouth. So when I turn someone away, then I'm theoretically not just turning them away, but also anyone that they might, speak highly of me of, who might have a case.
Sure.
So we just basically treat it as sort of a scaling issue. So as long as we could provide the customer service that I promise with my core values and what's on my website and all that, everything that I just said, as long as we can still do that, I will still take on a case that still might be lesser value because this client needs help. And by over delivering to them, they're going to help me grow my business also. But needless to say, it has to have merit. It has to be a legitimate case. I will never take a case where, not where I can't win, because I've had a lot of success where we've won cases where other lawyers have said this is an unwinnable case, but a case where it wouldn't make sense to take that risk. So that's basically it. We go through an evaluation process. Hey, this is a client that has a valuable case. It's valid. It's a client that needs our help. Let's take it on.
Okay, great. We have X amount of resources. We want to help the people that need it most.
Exactly. Perfect.
Okay. Now here's the one I really got to know about this. 32 years behind bars.
Yeah.
Like you said before, when you first started, 32 years is, just think of the last 32 years, what's happened. I mean, the internet became a thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. He doesn't know how to use a lot of this stuff. Yeah. He has to figure it out.
It's terrifying to come out into the world. How did you figure this out? How did you find it, the case?
Yeah.
Talk us through that, man.
Yeah. So it's a good question. So one of the cases that I took on when I left that firm I mentioned was a police brutality case of a gentleman who had recently got out of prison, but for no reason, police saw him and they roughed him up. And it was on video. By the way, caveat to that, because I don't want to come off like I'm any anti-police or anything like that. I love the police. I'm showing I have police officer clients as well. Having said that, like any field, there's a few bad seeds. Absolutely. And sometimes we need to protect other people's civil rights to make sure, the bad seeds and the issues that they have created are dealt with. So I just like to make that caveat because I'm
absolutely 99% of cops are good, but if you've seen videos like the Memphis 6, I'm pretty sure they were called, some aren't so hot.
100%. So I like to make that caveat. So going back to this excessive force case, it was on video, and I talk a lot about that, where video is, video on the phone now is such a valuable tool because it's easy to deny something when it's not on video, but when it's on video, you can't really deny it. So needless to say, they were trying to settle that case on the cheap, but I said, I'll take it to trial. So we started jury selection. And when jury selection happened, the city called me up and they said, all right, we got to resolve this case. So I got this gentleman a very good settlement. He loved me, right? So now he's speaking highly of me to other people. One of the persons that he spoke to was this gentleman in prison, who had been serving at that point 28 years in jail for a murder that he said he didn't commit. Now, obviously, most lawyers are going to say everybody in jail says that they didn't do it. Everyone in prison says it wasn't them. So how do you weed that out? And obviously, since I took this case on, I get a lot of mail with stories where I believe them. I don't think they did it because, of the way that they're talking to me. Now, I'm sure I'm being fooled maybe on a couple of them, but I don't really have the time to deal with all of them, and I'll try to help them find another lawyer. I just focus on this one case that we took on. And so that's how I got it, just word of mouth. And he sent me a letter and some exhibits that he had gotten. And I'm like, man, like, I really believe this guy. Making a Murderer, I don't know if you watched that on Netflix, had come out. There's a lot of Netflix documentaries about these types of stories. And I thought, all right, listen, let me try to use my skills for good here. Looking back on it, it was extremely naive of me because I had just started my firm. These cases cost a lot of money. In fact, I'm sending my investigator out tomorrow to go to talk to the same witness for the 4th time. I have to fly him out, rental car, hotel, his time. So it's expensive. And it's not like any case is going to settle soon to reimburse that. So I was naive on that because also you can believe someone that they're innocent. You can have witnesses like the gentleman that we're talking to this weekend who are recanting their story. And that's still not enough. There's a lot of legal loopholes, legal elements that you have to prove in order to get this case heard again. So it can't even be the same things that you talked about. Sometimes you have to have newly discovered evidence, which is what we're out there trying to do. So the judge, the city, everybody could really know that he's innocent. But if you can't satisfy the legal requirements, you can't even get the case in a position to get the conviction overturned.
Yeah.
So I was naive to that. I thought, hey, listen, like some of my, injury cases, I'll get the police report. We'll talk to a couple of witnesses. We'll see that, the other guy's at fault and they have to settle. That's not the case here, which I was naive to. But I'm happy I was naive because I'm still sticking into it or sticking with it. So now it's all these years later and it takes so long. So this is where my core values have a hard time with the reality because I want to try to provide this guy the best service possible. But and knowing where he's been for 30 years, but things take time, especially in this field. So documents that we've just sent, we sent requests to the city of New York multiple times, and the DA's office for documents rejected. For whatever reason, for a 6-month period, a legal loophole was created where they had to send me this. So we just got, after 4 years, 1,000 pages of new evidence. Wow. I don't think it's all new evidence, but no, we've now contacted new witnesses. So we hope that we're in a position within the next year or two to put this all together, to present it to the city and say, what do you guys want to do? This guy clearly did not do it. The evidence is clear. You can stand behind your old conviction and say, he was convicted by a jury of his peers then. But the fact of the matter is, this guy was 18 when he went away. All of the witnesses that put him on were 17 years old. They all got pressured by the DA's office to make they all got a deal to make some sort of deal to get some sort of benefit to say that my client was the guy. Right. And so because they had all these guys, pointing the finger at him, it was sort of an easy conviction, even though it wasn't. Yeah. And they're trying to stand by that. But now when a jury sees that, wait a minute, these kids were 17, like that's another thing. Think about what you were doing when you were 17 years old. Yeah. Most likely you were not in an interrogation room with the lights on you saying, if you say it's this guy, we're going to give your mom a free apartment or a new apartment for the next couple of years, which is what happened. So now all this is coming to light. So now we got to put this together. And I daydream every day about walking out of this prison with my guy after 32 years, because keep in mind also, it's not like he sat there for 32 years and didn't have a lawyer and said, all right, oh my God, Matt Segal just got this guy a great settlement. Let me reach out to him. He's had some other lawyers who have said, who have looked at it and said, it's not so easy. I'm not going to do it.
Oh, wow.
But again, being naive kind of helped me say, all right, it might not be easy. Let's see what we could do. And now, lo and behold, we're getting some new evidence that might make it easier. So I don't know if we'll ultimately be successful. I think we should be. I think if the city did what's right, they should let this guy out because, some of the evidence is crazy. Like the car that they said he did the shooting in, we have proof was in another state impounded when it happened. So if they're going to do the right thing, a lot
of effort was given when this guy was first convicted.
Great question. Not great effort. And so we have to toe the line of, alleging ineffective assistance of counsel and sort of kind of using what he did do. So it's crazy. And the last thing I'll say about it is in this time of, 30 years ago, early 1990s, it was rampant in this section of Brooklyn to wrongfully convict African-American men for these types of crimes. You're seeing over and over again, people are getting out for wrongfully convicted murders. Typically, sometimes they involve two detectives that were known to be like, mafia cops, they're called or whatever, who are doing, improper stuff. This doesn't involve them, so to speak, but it involves a lot of the same district attorneys and stuff. So it's known that it was rampant in that time period in this district, fitting this crime. So hopefully we can get everything together and we can get him out. It's going to be unbelievable.
Dude, that's such a cool story, man. It's like one of your first, it's like you're a boxer, one of your first fights, you decided to take on Mike Tyson.
Right. And it's tough. It's tough just because of the defendant, the city of New York, but also the laws that restrict what you can and cannot do and what threshold needs to be proven. And if you watch Making a Murder, for everyone that does, that's what they're dealing with now, all these years later. And I'm not saying whether or not he's guilty or not, but it's just gathering new evidence to present it again to even have the argument. So it's crazy, but hopefully we can get him out.
Yeah, that's so awesome, man. But I mean, in going back to you personally, though, I mean, I think you put yourself in a position to succeed, whereas you could have easily been like, nope, not my problem. That's way too hard, way above my pay grade. But you put yourself in a position to where if this does work out, and all the pieces do fall into place, and you do get the right evidence, and this does get turned in at the right time, and everything works. Dude, you did something big, like something huge.
And it's not that somebody's going to get a check for, $150,000. It's that a man is going to gain his freedom after 30 plus years, which again, I always think, how would I talk to a jury about this? And I just can't, it's impossible to comprehend. I kind of go back like I did. So it's like, imagine 32 seconds, imagine 32 minutes in a prison, imagine 32 months or weeks or days. Then go to years, year after year. Imagine everything that's happened, like the technology. That's a great way to put it. Like this wasn't even close to coming, it was, to coming out. So, so hopefully we can get him out. But one thing I will say about that also is that when I took this case on, I'd never done any of this, any wrongful conviction case. But what I did do is found the top investigator, found a mentor. I've been talking to some of the top attorneys in the state, in the country, about what they think I should do. So, this goes also to one of the number one lessons in starting my firm, and what I, want to talk to younger attorneys or people who are not, or younger business, business professionals or entrepreneurs, is that, there's a lot of value into not knowing a lot of things, and into knowing what you don't know, because what you do then is you form a team of experts. So instead of me, let's say I somewhat knew it and I thought to myself, I can get this done, because I somewhat know it. Instead, I'm saying, I don't know it. I'll learn what I need to know, but let me bring on the experts on it, because the pie will be big enough where it'll be, if I have a lesser piece than the whole pie, it's still going to be a much bigger pie than if I tried to keep it all for myself and got a much worse result.
Absolutely.
So, the number one thing, what I tell young entrepreneurs is the confidence that you need to get started, to start your own firm, to start your own business, is not that I know everything that I need to know. The confidence is that I'm confident in myself that I'll be able to figure out what I need to know along the way. Yeah. And that's such a major difference. And thank God I knew that, or somewhat had that instinct when I started my firm, because that was my first thought. It's like, holy shit, I can't compete with these New York City lawyers that have been doing it for 40 years, that know everything. Yeah. But what I realized is that, a rising tide lifts all ships. So they were more than willing to help me out, because they know they're going to get their cases. Everyone's going to get their cases. Someone else is going to get his. Why not help me, fill in the blanks of what I didn't know? And that just helped me become a better lawyer. And now I'm helping younger attorneys do the same.
That's awesome. So, and it's all about preparation. You prepared. You absolutely prepared. You showed up, you built a team, you learned all these things from previous experiences, and you built a team. So how are you teaching younger attorneys right now? Is it in the office, or are you teaching them somewhere else?
Yeah, so I appreciate you asking, and we didn't even talk about this, and I haven't really shared it with anyone, but so I've had interns, and because of Andy and Ed and Arate and everything like that, even before that, what the personal development world has done for me, and specifically, it really goes hand in hand a lot with entrepreneurship and personal development. As a lot of the great guys out there are kind of do both, but that gave me the mindset for when this opportunity came to me. I was ready to pounce and go from there. And I was ready to identify the one skill, which was being a trial lawyer, that could separate me from the rest of the pack, which is I'm really passionate about in any field you are, to try to identify what is the one skill that most people in your field are afraid to do. But if you do it, you're going to differentiate yourself. What's that one skill? So those two things kind of gave me a passion for, this personal development world that we're in, because your mindset is everything, right? It's everything. And so when I have interns come in, the first thing I do is I give them a copy of The Magic of Thinking Big, that book, maybe a couple other books. And I say, listen, I'm going to teach you how to do the law that I do. But, we'll talk about depositions. We'll talk about pleadings and motions and all that stuff. And all of that is critical, right? But unless you have the mindset to succeed, unless you're thinking big, you're going to be very limited the whole time. So that's what I do. I work with any of my interns, other people have, and my intern now has become my associate. And we still work on all those things. Fitness is a big thing that I think is important. So I've worked, I try to mentor people. I work with a organization in Brooklyn who teaches young kids to try to have some sort of skills that they don't get because they're underprivileged. Sure. But what I'm going to be starting within the next, I hope, week or two, or a couple weeks or month, or whenever it's ready, is a coaching program of my own. Very basic, nothing crazy, where I'm going to work with younger lawyers, younger entrepreneurs, even you don't even have to be younger, just be earlier on in your journey than me, so to speak. And I want to help you get to where I've been. And I'm very clear where I am, get to where I am, but where I am is nowhere near where I want to go. Yeah. For sure. But there's things along the way, like I said, where you could compress 10 years into 10 weeks or 10 days. So I want to share with them my skills. And I have a passion for coaching, is what I've learned. If I could really, hit it big one day and maybe scale back a little bit. I'd love to coach some high school basketball too. I just love
That's
coaching
awesome.
and getting people better. But I really want to start because, if I knew what I know now when I started my firm, then I could have been where I am now a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And so that's what I want to do. I want to really focus on, working on your mindset, working on your fitness, and working on your business skills. So anyone can start a firm, because I remember where I used to be when I just graduated law school and I'm working, I'm like, dude, how are people who didn't go to law school, didn't even go to college, making double amount of what I'm making? And I don't see that changing anytime soon, because the salary structure is not going to get me to where I want to be. So I knew I have to be entrepreneurial. I have to start my own business to get to where I want to be. And once you do that, all sorts of doors that you never even knew existed are going to start opening up for you in terms of avenues to make more money. So that's where I'm trying to help more people. I'm going to spread the news to you when that launches for
That's
sure.
awesome. I'll post it all over the place, dude.
I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, it's so cool too, because like when you start to realize a little bit of success and you start to like do a few things, you just want to tell everybody.
Yeah.
Right. You want to pass it on to the younger guys or really anybody that you think it might help.
Yeah. And so sometimes, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just had a thought. Sometimes the instinct for some people is like, fuck that. Let me keep everything for myself. If I tell these lawyers, then they're going to get cases that I don't. But that's so short-sighted and dumb, because you help them, guess who they're going to come to for help? If they have a case that's too big for them, guess who they're going to send it to? And it's my pleasure to help them. And so you got to have that big long-term picture with everything you do, including that.
They'll come back to you, but it's also a different type of success, right? It's like, it feels so good to help somebody else out, knowing you're not going to get anything out of it.
Yeah.
Right. Isn't that a crazy feeling? You're just like, I mean, like you said, high school basketball or whatever level of basketball you want to teach, you're probably not going to make millions of dollars being a basketball coach. Right. But what a great feeling when you get to like help that young kid that didn't know how to shoot, or, the kids that were having trouble in school, you kind of bring them together and make them into a team.
Exactly. And you know what, that sounds hokey too. That's probably my first lesson when the coaching program starts, which is typically the first lesson in most programs, which is like, when you stop focusing on making money and you change your focus to providing value to other people, and you just work away on that, providing value. How do I help them? The money then chases you. It sounds crazy. Corny. It sounds like, it's one of these, bullshit things that coaches say, but it's the truth. It's the absolute truth, because that's what people care about, value. People can see when you're just in it for a buck and, you're done. You get disconnected. And so, I hope
dime a dozen, man. Those guys are a dime a dozen.
Dime a dozen. And those are the people who, I hope I could differentiate myself in my marketing or whatever and my post, because like everyone knows, there's a million coaches now who haven't done anything, who just coach as their main business is coaching. So they're just coaching to coach, regurgitating the stuff that they've heard from, people in the space like Andy and Ed, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I've done it, and I want to share the lessons that I've learned, and not just coach to coach, but really coach to help help people get there.
In the podcast world, man, we get a lot of coaches. I get a lot of coaches that they teach that they don't have necessarily a business that they learned to coach from, right? They just learned to be a coach.
Right. And then there's coaching for coaches.
You can go take coaching to be a coach.
Right.
I don't even know what you would coach me on, but
right.
But it's cool to hear your stories. You actually built something, and then you're going to use that information to teach new people that didn't know any better.
For sure. And again, I think it doesn't have to be just lawyers, because the entrepreneurial mindset and the things that it takes to get a successful business applies across the board. So,
absolutely. All the stories you've told so far can apply to any single business.
For sure.
Preparation, attention to detail, focusing on one thing. Let's use a real estate example. Are you going to buy and sell every single real estate property in the world? No, you have to niche down and find the specific thing that you want to do.
Sure.
And then maybe the specific state you want to work in, the community you want to work in, right? Versus, so that your methods and your philosophy will work with anything.
Yeah, I believe so.
I think you're probably the only lawyer I've ever met that has ever spoken like this. So
that's what I'm saying.
It's very refreshing.
That's what I tried to start this a little while ago with one of the top lawyers in the country, with saying that to him, like there's nobody out there who, now you'll see a lot more programs and stuff like that. But nobody really speaks to the younger attorney, the kid in law school, someone who's just been practicing 4 or 5 years from now. Typically people want to, market and get a lot of the people who have been doing it for 15, 20 years, the theory being they have more money to spend on your coaching, right? Because they have more success, so they'll be able to pay a higher ticket for it. But yeah, so there, and by the way, that's something where I encourage people to get out in front of social media or whatever, because there's not a lot of, normal people like myself or like you who do this. And that's why I have success. When I go to court, you'd be surprised at some of the lawyers that you'll see, half their shirts sticking out, they're robots, they're not personal, no charisma, nothing like that. So if you have that, you're already separating yourself.
Yeah.
And so, combining, the legal world with the entrepreneurial world and being a normal person, I think is what
Isn't
helps
that
me.
weird that like
Yes.
you have to say that out loud, being a normal
Crazy.
person?
It's crazy, but it's so true. It's so true. It's crazy.
It puts you ahead so far. Like, and when you're young too, when you're new in any industry, you think all those guys at the top have it all together.
Right.
They are just so good at everything.
Right.
If you take that normal person attitude and you talk to people like a normal person would, it brings so much more, I guess, business attention to you. And I think a lot of new people don't know that. They don't realize that. They think I have to talk like a robot. I have to dress a certain way. I have to speak a certain way. And that's just not accurate. That's not true.
And there's a time and place for everything. Like right now in my office, I'm wearing a t-shirt. This is one of our firm t-shirts, but there'll be days where I'm in a t-shirt, even in the summer when it's humid, I'll wear shorts and a backwards hat. And they're like, I see some of the older guys in my office looking at me like, oh, he's a lawyer, maybe, but I'm not going to court like that. Right. And
try that next time, see what happens next time.
There's always a suit on my door if I need to change into it. But maybe I'm not wearing a hat or shorts or whatever. But if a client comes in and sees me wearing a t-shirt and jeans, it's sort of relatable. Like I can talk to my lawyer. He's not, always in a suit, with his hair slicked back and his glasses on. Obviously there's value to presenting yourself as a professional, and I do that as well. But like I was saying, there's a time and a place for everything. And if you could relate to someone, whether it's a client, then theoretically you're going to be able to relate to the jury down the road or the judge. Absolutely. So that interpersonal connection is probably the number one thing. And that's something that I think could differentiate you and me.
Absolutely. It is huge. It's so refreshing too, when you see the guy come at you and he's got a, very nice fancy suit on, and this dude's he's the guy, right? Everybody knows him as the guy. And he's like, hey, how's it going? My name's Matt. And you're like,
100%. Yep.
Hey, yeah. Hey, how's it going? And then he talks to you like a normal person, and you're like, it brings the walls down big time.
For sure. I've settled 2 cases recently.
Great.
Yeah. I settled 2 cases recently where the defense attorney, they've been hard cases, and the defense attorney has said, Matt, your case, you can't win. I always think I could win, but but in deep down, I know I could lose on trial because you never know. Yeah. But they've said, I really like you. I want you to do well on this. So I've got my insurance carrier to give this offer, and it's been way higher than I thought. And it's just because throughout the course of the litigation, I don't treat them like an enemy. We talk. I address them by their first name. In my email signature, I'll have a little thing under, like, on top of my official, email signature says Matt, like, speak to you later, Matt. And I think those things subconsciously and consciously go a long way because you're relating to them. So I find it crazy when I get these very formal emails from other attorneys, just without any personal connection. It's like, all right, if that's the way you want to be, we can go that route, but let's be professional human beings here. So there's a lot of value to that.
I think it's an incredibly outdated way of thinking too. And I know when I do like a podcast interview, you'll come in contact with people like that, and they can't bring that wall down. Right. It makes for a really difficult conversation to have with a professional, quote unquote, when they just can't break that, this is how I am. This is what I do. This is these are my rates. I'm like, okay.
We've all seen those kind of podcasts, not from you, but we've listened to those podcasts where it's just
Terrible.
weird.
All right, man. Matt, it's been awesome, dude. We're gonna have to do this again.
Yeah, for sure. PJ, thank you so much for taking the time, letting me, talk about myself. I usually like to be the one listening, but this was a change. This was awesome, man. I even learned a little bit more about myself. I have ideas here about what I want to do in the future just by talking. So I appreciate the time, my man.
That's perfect, man. And dude, I really appreciate it. I seriously do. You should. It should be at least a book.
Okay.
At least a book, because the story is really interesting. Like it really is. Like the whole buildup and everything, and the whole thing is super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people have their own version of that story, and maybe not to the crazy levels of some things.
Tell the one you just told. Just do that.
Yeah, let's do it. But there's value for everyone to share their story, I think. So, I'll tell it for sure one day.
Absolutely. It's really cool. All right, Matt, how can people get a hold of you?
Oh, awesome. Thank you. So on social, we have our at Segal Law Firm. It's Segal. Sounds like the bird, but it's spelled Segal Law Firm. There's also my personal account. So if you're interested in that coaching by any means, shoot me a DM. My Instagram handle, you could probably look me up at Matt Segal, Segal. And then the actual handle is Matt_Segal_ESQ, like Esquire for attorney. So look me up there, Segal Law Firm. You could Google, it's segal-lawfirm.com. And, if you ever need us for any reason, even if you just want to call and see if you might have a case, by all means, reach out to us. If there's any other way we can help you, we'd be happy to provide that value for any reason. It doesn't even have to be legal. So that's it, awesome, my man.
Thank you so much. All right, Matt, here's the big question though, dude. Here is the big question we ask at the end of this podcast, at the end of every podcast. All right. So if you, Matt, we're LandLife, keep losing hats. They're everywhere, but
yeah,
LandLife.
I'll send you one of my hats too.
We buy and sell dirt right there.
Yep. There it is.
Buy and sell dirt. Matt, if you could buy land anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
All right. So I know since you're a real estate guy, that question may be asked for business or investment purposes. But since I'm not in that world, I'm going to go a different. I'm going to go a different way. Okay. I'm going to say Hawaii. If I have to narrow it down, I guess I'll say Maui. Just because. So I was there many years ago as a teenager, and what I remember, similar to a good closing argument, see, I'll tie that in there, is not everything that happened. I remember the feeling, how I felt there. And I just remember feeling like, whoa, there's a energy, there's a vibe here that's different. And it makes you feel like amazing. So I'm going to say that. And the other reason why is because I never got to go on my honeymoon, which was a unbelievable trip planned to Hawaii, because that was supposed to happen like the week after COVID exploded. But we never got to go. So if I could buy property, I'm going to do it there so we could fix that situation. So
absolutely. If anybody's listening to hook this guy up to get him on a
free trip to Hawaii.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
We get some one of these Arate guys jets or something to go out.
Let's go. Yeah.
That'd be pretty sweet. Right on, Matt. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, I'll see you on LandLife.
PJ, you're the man. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.